We've entered the second week of Advent, the 4 weeks before Christmas that bring the calendar year to a close. And it's these same 4 weeks that actually mark the beginning of the church year. Advent is a season of deliberate and mindful waiting before Christmas. It's a marking of time with heightened awareness that for those in the church, we live between two kingdoms. And the kingdom of this world, it moves through Advent with an increasingly frenetic countdown. Time is marked by the number of shopping, decorating, baking days until the day. Time, it stands over the season like a judge. If you are good enough, organized enough, creative enough, productive enough, all the enoughs, then you can count down these disappearing days without dread. But if you have slacked or if you lack, you live under the heavy awareness that with each passing day, judgment draws near. That is life in a works-based kingdom. In a works-based kingdom, the amount of peace that you can expect to experience is directly correlated with your circumstances and your works. If you're in difficult circumstances, well, you're going to need to work harder to overcome them or to live well within them. Get the stuff, to make the stuff, to give the stuff. And if you feel like you're lacking in resources or an ability, well, social media is there to save you. Just this last week, I saw a post that was offering salvation for low-budget Christmas dinners, and it was saying that you could create an entire Christmas feast entirely from cans, right down to a canned turkey. Do you feel like you don't know how to create the right atmosphere? Search it up. You can go foraging for twigs and boughs. I'm not sure where, your neighborhood park. Don't know if that's legal, but you get them, you bring them home, you put them around your candles, but not too close. And if you're worried that your dinner guests might be as flammable as your decorations, the socials can save you there too. There are so many safe conversation pointers that you can be equipped to talk about essentially nothing with the people gathering around your canned turkey. Do all of this and you'll have peace. Peace that you have bought and brokered with your time and your effort and your money. And whatever your limitations, you can find a pep talk that's desired to inspire you to rise above and to triumph and turn your lemon into a lemonade franchise. This can seem workable for the strong, but it quickly morphs into a survival of the fittest. A might makes right. A work-based kingdom, it offers hollow promises to people who don't fit in those categories, and it rings especially hollow in a year like the one we've just had, where we've watched cities burn and we have had field hospitals spring up in our backyard. This year, many of us face the possibility of not gathering over a turkey, but on a Zoom screen. And fighting for peace, it can sound noble at first, but after months of duking it out in the comment thread, it feels less noble and more like just plain old fighting. And striving to create and enforce peace, it ends up looking like a violent wrestling match that isn't going to end until someone is pinned to the mat in defeat. Where is peace when you fear the people who will take your freedoms away? Where is peace when you fear the people who've never had their freedoms taken away and won't even allow them to be restricted? Where is peace when you live in fear of both? It's in just this kind of year that I find hope and peace in words that were written thousands of years ago by a Hebrew prophet named Isaiah. And we can read them in the 9th chapter of the book that's named after him in the Bible. And it says, "The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in a land of deep darkness, on them has light shone." Do you feel that deep darkness? Are you longing for that kind of light? Well, listen, because here it comes. "For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulders, and his name," and name here refers to his identity or what will define him. "His name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end." Wouldn't a man like this striding onto the scene be a bright light? A wonderful counselor who would make wise plans based on the right intelligence, mighty God, not just a God, but the God, everlasting Father, a perfect Father who's never going to grow old and never going to die, so always able to protect and provide and care for his children. And Prince of Peace, a ruler who would unite, not divide. Couldn't someone like this bring real peace? If we fast forward hundreds of years from Isaiah's words to Luke's gospel, we read this story of a Jewish priest named Zechariah, and he's on duty doing his work in the temple when one day an angel suddenly appears to him and announces that even though Zechariah and his wife are really old and past the point of having children, they're going to have a son. And Zechariah struggles to believe this, and so he's unable to talk until his son is born. And so he has about a year to meditate silently on this promised coming son who is going to prepare the way for the son spoken about in Isaiah chapter 9. And Zechariah's baby is born, and on the day that he's dedicated, Zechariah's mouth is opened, and he breaks out in a song of praise and of prophecy. And he says, "You, my son, will go before the Lord to prepare his ways." What will be the ways of this coming Lord? To give knowledge of salvation to his people in the forgiveness of their sins because of the tender mercy of our God, whereby the sunrise shall visit us from on high to give light to those who sit in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the way of peace. Echoing Isaiah, Zechariah declares the Son is on his way, and he is going to be the wonderful counselor who gives knowledge of salvation. He is going to forgive sins as only God can. And in tender mercy, he is going to demonstrate the perfect love of the Father. His coming is going to be like the sunrise after a dark night. It's going to bring the light of life and of peace. This is going to be the Son of Isaiah chapter 9, and it's his coming that we celebrate at Christmas. But wait a second. If the Son has already come, why doesn't our world look more like the promise from Isaiah chapter 9? Why do we still live under rulers who don't have all the wisdom and they don't have all the power? And thank goodness for that, because they are not good enough to let themselves be uncorrupted by it. If the darkness has been overcome, why does it still linger? Advent is a reminder that we still wait, caught between two kingdoms, because we are still waiting between two comings. We live in this world, and in many ways, it is a good world. There is much good that we can know and experience in it. It is a good thing to enjoy the people and the activities of this season. It's a good thing, but it's not an ultimate thing. While these things can be enjoyable, they will never secure a lasting peace any more than they can secure a lasting hope, because while there is much in this world that is good, this world is also broken. The kingdom of heaven, it has broken through into the kingdom of this world, but not in its fullness. Why? Because the Prince of Peace came first to open up a way of peace. A peace that can only come when the hostilities between rebellious humanity and holy God have ceased. Peace, it refers to an absence of conflict or an absence of hostility. I mean, it can also refer to silence. Have you ever been told to hold your peace and it meant stop talking? But the root of the word peace actually comes from a word that means to fasten. It's the same root that we get the words pact and friendship and love from. Conversely, the word conflict comes from the root word meaning to strike. Peace is the stability and the security that comes when two fractured, warring parties are fastened or bound together, no longer separated as enemies, but made whole through peace. And we're familiar with the peace process, where peace is brokered through negotiations and then it's solidified through peace pacts. That's what we need. We need a peace pact between us and God because we have struck at God in rebellion. And so our relationship is defined with hostility, with conflict, and by separation. And we could try to negotiate a peace pact between us, but the thing is, we have nothing to bring to the table to start the negotiations because we don't have a single thing that God needs. And if you've ever tried to broker a deal, you know that you're not in a good bargaining position if you don't have anything that the other side needs or wants. With nothing to bring to the table, we're in an impossible situation. But even worse, we're so rebellious, we don't even want to start the negotiations. The good news of the gospel is that while we sat in darkness, separated from God and not even searching for the light, he drafted the peace pact between us. He came into our darkness to shine the light of his life on us by coming as the suffering servant that we can read about in Isaiah chapter 53. The Son who bore our griefs, who carried our sorrows, the one who was stricken or smitten by God, the Son who was pierced for our transgressions to take the punishment that bought our peace. We're the ones who turned aside and went our own way, but the price for our sin, it was charged to Jesus. And so though we broke the peace and we caused the conflict, God did everything that was necessary to broker a peace deal. He called us to the negotiating table. He put everything on the table, and all that's left for us to do is to accept what he has already done on our behalf. That's why he came, and that's what he accomplished with his first coming. Darkness is defeated, and victory, it has been proclaimed to the deepest hell and the highest heaven, and now we wait. We wait for him to come again, and this waiting, it's his mercy, it's his grace, it's the patience that he is extending to give all people in all places time to respond to his offer of peace. But he is coming again, and we can read at the end of Hebrews chapter 9 that the next time that he comes, it's not going to be to deal with sin. Sin has already been dealt with. The next time that he comes, he is coming to save those who are eagerly waiting for him. In Christ, we have already been saved from the power of darkness. But when he comes again, we will finally be fully saved from the presence of darkness. Do you want peace this Christmas? The only place that you are going to find it is in the Prince of Peace, who invites all people to come to him if they are weary and if they are heavy burdened, and he will give them rest. In him, our strivings can cease as we find peace with God, peace within ourselves, and as he gives us his power to extend peace to the world around us. Not a peace of doing, but a peace of knowing that no matter what happens around us, someday there is going to be a time when everything that could be used to make war will be destroyed. You can check it out. It's in Isaiah chapter 9. And in verse 5, it says that everything the warriors used to make war, it's going to be burned. In Psalm 46, which is the be still and know that I am God psalm, it says that the stillness of peace is going to come when the instruments of war have been shattered. Time marches on, but in Christ, we don't count down in fear of judgment falling. Judgment has fallen, and it fell on him. All that's left for us to do is to wait and to watch the kingdom clock count up in joyful anticipation.